Good morning, and you're very welcome to this morning's live. Now, this morning it's just me. I decided what I'd do is take my own live Q&A to these live sessions instead. And I just want to say thank you so much for all of you who have sent in questions. That's why I'm a little bit late starting. I'm just trying to make sure I can cover as many of them as I can. But don't be shy, do ask questions as we go along. And as I say, I'll do my very best to try and answer everybody. So, we're constantly getting asked questions, everything from interiors to architecture. And, what we're trying to do with these live sessions is to build up a library of as many different topics as possible so that you guys have something to refer back to. So I appreciate that not everybody is always going to, be that interested in what we're talking about each week. Some of the topics are very specific, but maybe when it comes to doing your own project, you'll find them really, really useful. So I'll be referring to some of those as we're going along, because we've had a lot of questions, that we have covered in previous topics. So I think that's really good for anyone who was asking those questions, just to go back and take another look. So I'm going to get started with what was a great question actually, and it's somebody saying that they're in the early stages of doing a project. Now they're saying that this might seem like a stupid question. It absolutely is not. They're saying what falls under the interior designer scope and what comes under the architect scope, and at what stage should you bring in the interior designer into the project? So honestly, it's a brilliant question, because we do both. We are architects, but we do interior design as well. So we would often work on projects where we're only providing interior design. So we'd be working alongside an architect, and some architects don't get involved in anything to do with interiors. And even we've had clients where the architect hasn't taken on the stair design, the look of the stairs. And they've been quite surprised then when they get to that stage that they don't have anybody to help. So it's really important that when you're working with somebody, really understand the scope of what is included in what they do from the outset. Because what you don't want to happen is for you to have any surprises along the way, particularly surprises that are going to cost you money, because that's the last thing you need when you're planning a project like this. And then I guess the starting point with any home renovation is to get the layout right. So that's really where you need to start. So that's working with the architect in the first instance. And then once you have those layouts agreed, and in some cases even before you go for planning, you could start talking to interior designers. But I suppose the most critical stage to engage an interior designer is before you go to tender. So before you're sending out your information to the builders for pricing. Now the reason for this is because you want to know what all those fixed elements are going to cost you. So things like your kitchen, things like your floors, your bathrooms, all those interior bits and pieces that take a long time, they cost money. So it's really important that you've chosen those and that you understand what those prices are. Because then when you get your builder's price back, you'll have a full picture of what the project is costing. And it means that if there needs to be compromises, you're much more informed about where those compromises need to happen. So I would absolutely recommend, putting a good amount of work into that as early as possible. So that probably means engaging an interior designer a good few months before you're planning on going out to tender. So I hope that answers the question, but honestly, that is probably, if it's not dealt with properly, it can be one of the most stressful things to deal with. Because if you haven't chosen those things, firstly, you don't know what the cost is. Also, the builder doesn't know what he's pricing for. So I might actually just show you a picture of this. So for example, let's say you're picking floor tiles, and you decide that you want to go with something that's quite decorative, whereas if you haven't picked this before you go out to tender, the builder will make an assumption. So he will allow for standard tiles and laying standard tiles, and let's say down the line then you find these fabulous mosaic tiles like in this picture. This is a far more intricate type of tile to fit. So what that means is going to be an additional cost when the builder comes to price this. So that's just one example where, a builder will make an assumption unless what you have chosen is specified. And that just leaves it open for interpretation, and it means that down the line you might find yourself having additional costs. Now, just to say as well, because we're so acutely aware of this, and that these are the areas where people get very bogged down. There's so much choice. So we've created a package, our fixtures and fittings package. So this is where we would help you choose all of these elements and then coordinate that with your tender pack so that you can get everything priced. And it just means then that when you are ready to go to tender, you'll have all your decisions made. And then most importantly, when the builder starts on site and starts asking you for all of these things, you're way ahead of him. So you can just, tell him exactly what you need rather than running out and having to make decisions under pressure, which will mean you might end up picking things you don't like or wasting a lot of money. So that was a brilliant question, and thank you for asking that. So then jumping on to something else, another one that we get a lot of questions about are pine. People with pine doors, pine floors, what to do. So this is a lady who's saying, I have pine floors upstairs and hate the look of them. Would carpets be easier and cheaper, or sand and varnish or paint? Any colour products you would recommend? So I suppose I've lived with this myself. Many years ago, we stripped carpets when we first moved into the house and didn't have much budget to do anything else other than paint them. Now, the only thing I would say about that is it is what I would consider a very temporary measure. You don't know, like, if the quality of the floor isn't particularly good, if there's staining or, marks or damage. Going to the expense of sanding them, firstly it's a very messy job, so you'd have to strip everything out, and then varnishing them again. I suppose unless you go very dark, they're still going to be the pine floors. So my recommendation, I suppose, if you want something quick and that's affordable, I would definitely consider carpets. Carpets are great upstairs, great for sort of sound absorption, but also really nice underfoot in bedrooms and things like that. So I think that would definitely be my recommendation over painting or sanding them. And then another question from the same lady was, would I recommend painting the stairs the same colour as panelling? So I suppose what I would always say with that is, and I might just try and show another image, is I always recommend painting all of your woodwork the same colour. So whether you go with a dark sort of look or whether you go completely light. So you can, like in this image here, all the woodwork was painted in a lovely off-white, and then that would be continued along the staircase, on the banisters, all of that. But then you could reverse that. So what we could have done in this instance is painted the walls in a light colour and then kept the panelling and the staircase in a darker shade. So that'd be my recommendation. Do paint the stairs the same colour as the panelling. So another question then that we got asked was somebody looking to find the floor plans of their house. So they're just asking, how do we go about doing this? So if the house has had any planning applications made in the past, any work that needed planning, you might be able to find drawings on the planning system. So this is pretty easy to look up. You just go onto your local authority website and you can search under the planning system to see if you can find some drawings. If that isn't the case, what you would need to do is get a measured survey done. So if this is something you need, please do reach out to us. You can book a call and speak to one of the team. The lines are open Monday to Saturday, so there's no problem, and we can recommend somebody who would be able to carry out a survey for you. So another one then is paint. So we've got lots and lots of paint questions, so I'll fly through some of them. So one person looking for a grey paint that would go with a blue sofa. So there's a couple of ways you can go here. You can go with something that's quite, I suppose, in the cooler spectrum. So something like cinder, and I might just show you a little photo. I was trying to find some photos. So if you look at this room here, you can see there's a navy chair in this room here. So this is quite a light colour. Very similar to the colour behind me actually, it's subtle cinder. You could then take it one step further and just sort of slightly darker shade, which is the mid cinder. So again, you can see it's quite a soft and I guess a warm grey, and it goes beautifully with the navies. Then an alternative to that, if you want to go something a little earthier, a little on the warmer side, this might be nice, for example, if it's a north facing room that doesn't get too much sun. So I'd recommend something like this, which is pure muslin. So again, it's of the grey family, but just a much warmer tone, which is really, really nice and great in a north-facing room. Then another question we got about colour was looking for a nice shade of green for a bedroom. So there's a gorgeous green, jute is what I'd recommend. So this, I don't know if you can see, and it's lovely, even if it's often we'd use this in little girls' bedrooms because it pairs really nicely with soft pinks, with copper tones, with all those warm tones. And what we did here was we painted the joinery in the slightly darker shade. So it's mid-jute on the walls, and then it's a dark jute on the joinery to complement that. So another question then we got, what kitchen handles would you recommend for this style of kitchen door, please? And this lady very kindly sent the photo, which I hope I can open. So thank you so much for sending the photo. That's fantastic. It makes it much easier to help. So what I'd say is it's a beautiful colour, beautiful style of door, and love the countertop that you've picked. There's a lot of detail on the door, and I guess when you imagine that in a kitchen with lots and lots of doors, there's going to be quite a lot going on. So that's quite a statement in itself. So I'd be really inclined to keep the handles as simple as possible. So I think that little knob that you've picked there, rather than the pull handle, would be really, really lovely. So then we had another question, this time about external patio. So somebody asking, would we recommend external porcelain tiles instead of paving for an outside patio? And is it difficult to lay them? So absolutely, they're brilliant. And what's really lovely about using the porcelain tiles is you can get that flow from inside to outside. So we would often use this in homes where we're trying to create that inside-outside flow. So for example, a lot of the porcelain tile manufacturers will sell versions of the internal tiles that are suitable for outside. So what you need to look for is a product that's suitable for exterior but also has an anti-slip function. So often you'll find the inside ones are more smooth, and outside they may have a bit of texture on them. But I suppose, again, it's letting whoever's doing your external works know what you're thinking of, and then they can make the necessary build up and prepare for that properly, rather than letting them make an assumption that you're going for granite or whatever. But very straightforward to do, and as I say, we would do it a lot. Another question we got then was looking for a Belgian style fireplace. So there's some great fireplace manufacturers out there. This person is wondering about Millerstone. Miller Brothers are fantastic. Absolutely speak to them. My advice would be to get a good few quotes, shop around. Never just go to one supplier. It's really great to go and talk to as many people as you can. And, you'll find that you learn something different from each person. So it's a really worthwhile exercise just to speak to a few people, visit showrooms if you can, and go and see things. Lamartine are fantastic as well, and Buckley's are brilliant. So, they're two that we would use quite a lot as well. So I'd recommend chatting to them too. And now a question, we've got a lot of questions about floors actually. So one of the first questions was, and we get this so often, somebody planning a kitchen renovation, they love the look of timber, but they're very concerned about installing it in their kitchen. And they're just wondering, are porcelain tiles more practical? So my answer, and look, I can completely empathise on this. Most of you will know by now that when I was doing my own house, these floor tiles in this area was probably the one thing that I absolutely deliberated over the most. Really difficult decision. It's such a permanent decision. It's such a statement, particularly if, like me, this floor is kind of travelling throughout the house into your hallway and things like that. So what I would suggest, my preference always is tiles in a kitchen, simply because they're so practical. Here we have a lot of glazing, there's a lot of movement from inside to outside. I have had timber in that kind of location in the past, and it doesn't wear very well near the doors in particular. And if you've got kids, if you've got pets, it's really important to think about these things. It's also important to think about your tolerance for things getting a bit scuffed or looking a bit worn. So some people really like that, other people that would really bother them. So, take your own personal preferences into account as well. And then, perhaps your kitchen is laid out in such a way that you could have tiles near the wet area, and then you could have timber in the rest of the space. So that way then you have the best of both worlds. And you can do a beautiful detail where you literally butt joint the two finishes, so you don't need any sort of metal transition strips or anything. So you've got good contractors, they'll be able to do a really neat joint, so you'll get that lovely seamless flow between the two. And then if your heart really is set on timber, I'd recommend going with an engineered board. So this is where the floorboard is made up of a layer of ply, which is very stable material, and then a veneer of timber on top. So it just means that if there are any leakages or anything, the floor is less likely to, warp and things like that you often hear about with solid timber floors. And then finally, just to say about flooring, tiles, if you've got underfloor heating, the engineered boards will work really well, but also tiles are the perfect partner. So a lot of people steer away from tiles because they feel they're going to be cold. But here we have underfloor heating and it's just lovely. They're so warm underfoot, so it's a really pleasant surface to walk on, even in the depths of winter. So I'd really recommend that. And then another question about flooring was which looks better, the 190mm or 220 wooden floors. So I suppose that just depends on the space you're putting it into. The wide planks are beautiful, they really make a statement, and I guess the wider you can go, the better, really, in my opinion. I think the wide boards are really beautiful, unless your space is really small, and then they can feel a little bit, off kilter with the rest of the room. And then this person's also asking about is herringbone dated, and should they do all herringbone, or would I mix straight planks with the herringbone? So no, I don't think herringbone's dated at all. I think it's been around a very long time. There's now beautiful contemporary versions of it, more chevron style, things like that. So there's lots of different ways that you can achieve that look now. And again, just the amount of finishes and colours and tones that are available in wood can really give that look a really contemporary twist. We have mixed them a lot in the past, so often what we would do is perhaps put the herringbone in a reception area and then wide plank through a hallway, things like that, just to break up the spaces. So you definitely can mix both, and I guess it's looking at your floor plan and what's going to work best for you. So I'm just conscious now I'm reading this, so I'm just going to have a look here and see. So I see one question here. Could you recommend a paint colour for a north-facing sitting room with a black fireplace, looking to get a feeling of warmth in the room without making it feel smaller? Okay, brilliant question. So I suppose the black fireplace is going to really dominate at the moment, and we have a north-facing sitting room here, and I've gone through many iterations of colours, but one that's beautiful is one that I mentioned previously, which is a colour called Pure Muslin, and that's from the Dulux Signature collection. So that's a really nice, it's like a warm, I suppose, sandy beige tone. I'll try and pull it up again. And then another colour that's really beautiful is a colour from Colour Trend called Goya. So that's a really kind of, it's almost like an old gold. Now, it's not yellow in any way, it's not old-fashioned at all, it's actually quite a contemporary colour. There's sort of undertones of green to it, but in a north-facing room with that really soft light, it just comes to life. Like, it would be really strong in a south-facing room, but in a north-facing room, and particularly with those tones of black, I think that could be really, really lovely. So I recommend go out and try those two, Pure Muslin and then Goya from Colour Trend. And I'll just see if I can see another one. So how to assess aluminium sliders? What should we look for? So Lorraine, that's a great question. I think aluminium has come on so much in recent years. When we first moved into this house, it's a 1950s house. It had those old aluminium windows. They were freezing, single glazed. So I think, a lot of people think of that when they think of aluminium, but it's come on so much now. The windows here in this space are actually aluminium, and what aluminium windows will allow you to do is to have really, really thin glazing bars. So that means your view will be, hardly obstructed at all. So if you're looking for that really light look and feel to your windows, aluminium is absolutely ideal. And actually, it just makes me think that we got another question about steel windows and somebody who really likes the look of crittle windows, but asking about, you know, how they perform in comparison to other kinds of windows. And I suppose the answer to that is they're not as thermally efficient. The crittle windows are not as thermally efficient as the likes of aluminium or timber or aluclad. So crittle windows are steel windows. And they're extremely, extremely expensive as well. So, you know, if that's a look you're going for, you need to budget very carefully and make sure you understand the costs from the beginning. And what we've done in the past, and actually I'll pull up a few pictures, we have actually designed crittle windows to look like crittle windows, like this one, for example. So this is really like the crittle style, but that's actually a timber window. So this means you've got, you know, it performs really well thermally. You get that wonderful look with, you know, much less cost, and you just have the benefit of a really warm, lovely house. And the beauty about doing it in timber is you've so many options in terms of style. So again, this is another style that we would have designed. And here's another example as well. And this is where we use them internally as well as externally. So it was Kells Joinery that made these for us. So, you know, if you're looking for that crittle style, I'd really recommend exploring the timber. And then the other alternative that's fantastic is the aluminium. So aluminium is a wonderful product. Lots of different suppliers out there who can supply aluminium. And as I say, will give you that really lovely fine glazing bar, so that lovely seamless flow from inside to outside. So I'll just scroll here. Okay, this is a great question as well. I'm interested in adding lighting features, hidden or recessed. At what point should I bring this up with my architect, interior designer? So you might actually want to go back and have a look at the live I did with Rocky Wall, because we did have a chat about this. So this is something you need to be talking about really early on in the process, because those sort of recessed lighting details need to be designed in. And they're brilliant, because what it means is you can save an awful lot on your light fittings. So you can use things like the LED tapes, which are very inexpensive, and just create that real wow factor without having to go for the feature light, which can be quite expensive. But the critical thing is, you know, to make sure they're designed in and factored in. So as soon as possible would be the answer to that one. Make sure I'm not missing anybody's questions now. I'll scroll through. Okay, here's one. Do you think charred larch cladding, brushed and oiled on the exterior of a side garage is worth the extra expense over stained black timber, Victorian red brick house? I think that the charred larch is beautiful, and I've seen some beautiful images recently, just some projects that are being done. I guess it's to really look at your budget and think about the maintenance long term. So, you know, I think you can probably achieve a similar look with the stained black timber, but I guess what is the maintenance on that and the lifespan versus the charred larch? So probably worth weighing it up long term rather than just thinking about it now with that uplifting cost. And I suppose that's a really important point across the board, you know, that often we make decisions about, you know, the cost right now without thinking about the long-term implications. And, you know, you might find yourself kicking yourself a few years down the line. And this is especially true when it comes to energy efficiency and things like that. So, yeah, maybe just weigh up those costs. And actually on the energy efficiency, with just somebody asking us about what grants are available and how to go about getting them. So my advice there would be check out the SEAI website. They list out everything that is available. It's really clear. It's a fantastic website. And also that if you are planning any work, you know, to improve your home's energy efficiency, it's important that you try and get a BER assessment done. So what that'll do is someone will come in, assess your home, and then give you a plan of what you need to do, and, you know, really good advice about where to start, rather than just doing bits and pieces without knowing what's going to give you the biggest return for your investment, I suppose. So that'd be my recommendation. And again, the SEII website have a list of recommended BER assessors. Check out the live that I did with Tomás O'Leary a couple of weeks back, and he has great advice about all the different things you can do to enhance your home's energy efficiency, but also he kind of cautions on the BER assessor, and to make sure that you get a couple of quotes, that you speak to people and find somebody that you feel comfortable working with, because it does vary, like the prices vary, and his recommendation would be never go with somebody just solely based on cost. Okay. So just see. So any idea about the difference between polished concrete floor, self-leveling and terrazzo layer, trying to achieve a light and even look for open plan? Well, those are all beautiful finishes. The thing about any of those poured finishes, so you can see this is a concrete floor here in this image on the screen. You need somebody who's very experienced with laying them. They are quite expensive finishes to get right. There is a risk with the likes of terrazzo and concrete that over time you're going to get cracking and things like that. Now, it's sort of important just to kind of bear that in mind, that may happen. So again, I would speak to specialist contractors, speak to your own contractor about the suitability of your own home, and then weigh it up against the cost of tiles. Like, there's fabulous tiles out there that look just like terrazzo, beautiful tiles that look like concrete. So you might just find that you can achieve a similar look for less money, and then without the concerns of issues happening down the line. So I might hop back to some of these here. Another question we had was, just somebody asking approximate price per square metre for alu-clad windows. So I suppose, typically we would see for a standard maybe 3-4 bed semi-detached house where we're extending, you could be looking at about 30, even 40,000 to replace all of the windows in alu-clad. Alu-clad is one of the more expensive window finishes, but it is a fantastic option, for the simple reason that there is zero maintenance down the line externally for the windows. So again, it kind of comes back to the point about weighing it up over time, alu-clad versus timber. Definitely try and recommend fitting the alu-clad into the budget, because you're just going to benefit long term. So again, what I would say is shop around. Like, different suppliers will have different prices, but then there are completely different products. So really important to kind of get a feel for what's available out there and look at the different options before you make your decision. So this is a lovely question here. Any recommendations for books or other sources to learn about the basics of architecture? Hoping to purchase a second home soon and would love to learn more before buying. Well, I think, architecture books, I suppose I haven't bought one in a very long time. I just, to be honest with you, feel there's so much information available online, and everything from really in-depth information to sort of much more easy to digest stuff out there. So I just think, try and find, perhaps even on sites like Instagram, architects that you like the look of their work. A lot of them have written books, so it might be really nice to find an architect whose style you like and sort of learn about them and their approach and things like that. So it's also worth maybe having a look in the RII in Merrion Square. So it's the Institute of Architects here. They have a fabulous bookshop. So really worth popping in there and browsing and seeing what you like the look of. But probably start there if you're looking for a book in particular. So I'm conscious now, I don't want to keep you all morning, so I'll just do one more if that's okay. We do a question about, let me see if I find it. Yes, attic spaces. So we get so many questions about attic spaces, and I guess at the moment, a lot of people looking for extra space, and that space right over our heads is often the one that's untapped, unused. So we had a question saying, we're planning on converting our attic to create space for a home office. Do you need planning permission for this work? So the answer is, unless you're adding a dormer to the back, and I might just show you a picture of a dormer. So this, for example, this is actually an attic space where we added a dormer, and this was to create a bedroom and lots of dressing rooms and then a lovely bathroom as well. So that's the dormer. So that's a dormer where you kind of extend out of your roof space to give you extra height inside. So if you're adding a dormer, you do need planning. And then if you're adding Velux windows to the front of your house, so you can see here this little bathroom, so the smaller of the windows is actually to the front of the house, that would need planning as well. Otherwise you don't need planning. But just to say as well, for any of you who are following our Lessons in Layout series, so that's our sketching series that we share every single Sunday, tomorrow's one is going to be all about converting your attic. So do check that out because it has all the information that you need. So if you're planning any kind of work like that, you should find that really, really helpful. So thank you so much, guys. That was brilliant. Thank you for all your questions. I really hope I covered them all. If I didn't, I'll do my best to DM whoever sent them in and cover those ones. But thank you so much, and thank you for joining every week. It's great to see all the comments and all the lovely messages afterwards. And please, if there's any topic you would like me to cover, because I'm always looking for ideas of what to do next, let me know. Send a little message, email us. Anytime, just let us know and then we'll do our best to cover them. So have a lovely Saturday. Thanks for joining and see you next week.